This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On the Air.
Right On, showcasing the work of Otago Southland writers. I'm Beverly Martens. Join me for news and interviews with local writers on the second Wednesday of every month from noon till 1 and replayed the following Sunday at 1 p.m. Right On is brought to you by the Otago Southland Branch of the New Zealand Society of Authors and kindly supported by the great team at the University Bookshop.
What do you want to be when you grow up? They say you are what you read, and the University Bookshop can help you be whoever you want to be. Do you want to be an athlete? Then sit down with an inspiring sports biography. Do you fancy yourself as a detective? We have a grisly lineup of murder mysteries waiting just for you. Do you aspire to be the world's greatest chef? We have cookbooks to tantalise your taste buds. Do you want to celebrate your inner child? Play up in our fabulous children's room. The University Bookshop, helping you decide what you want to be when you grow up.
Hello and welcome to Right On with me, Beverly Martens. I'm coming to you from a very chilly winter's day in Dunedin, so I'm hoping that there'll be some really warm and colourful things on the show that you will enjoy. Now, my first guest is Dominic Hoey. Dominic, I'm sure he's been getting a lot of attention lately, finally, after kind of beavering away in the dark for quite a long time. He's a poet, author, rapper, and a youth worker from Tamaki Makaurau, and he his stage rapper name is Tourette's. And his first book of poems was called "I Thought We'd Be Famous" back in 2019, and I think he's still on that jag now. So he was in town last week for the launch of his third novel, 1985, which follows on from Iceland and Poor People with Money. He's a terrific writer. I've got a lot of respect for him. And just to give you a context of me talking to him, he came through town last Thursday, and I was hoping to capture him on the way to his book launch and had the studio booked and everything. And then, of course, bad weather and his plane was late, so that opportunity went out the window. I have managed to talk to him since then on his cell phone while he's still on his book tour. So I was really pleased I got that opportunity, but I do need to apologise in advance for the sound quality. Because obviously it's not as great as it would be if we were talking face-to-face. So here's Dominic Hoey. Welcome, Dominic. Really great to have you on my show. Now, you've just been a whistle-stop tour through Otipoti and then on to Christchurch because you're doing a kind of a book tour of your latest novel. How's that going?
It's been really good, yeah. Lots of people came and people seem to be enjoying the book, and it was bitterly cold, but I survived.
It's because it's quite unusual to do a book tour these days. Either, it's a sort of time, trouble and money thing that publishers, etc., and or authors aren't that keen on. What made you want to do that?
I did it with all my books, but I think it's really important, to it's a great way to obviously sell books, and I think. And also I did I did some shows as well, so that sort of helped to sort of offset some of the costs. Right,
yeah. So you're sort of wearing the two hats, the sort of performing poet kind of thing as well as the author, yeah?
Yeah, and I think as well you may as well make the most of it while people are excited about the book,
Yeah, no, good for you. I couldn't agree more. I think it's fantastic, and I think that it then sets up something for the next time, and it all builds, doesn't it? And you're building community at the same time. I think that's great. Okay, so let's just now talk about the book, which is your third novel, and it's getting a lot of traction, which is fantastic. Essentially, it's I haven't had the chance to read it yet, Dominic, but it's a kind of an escapade of coming of age sort of novel with a very dysfunctional family. Set against, as you've said yourself, disorganised crime and violence. So I shouldn't be laughing, but I always do in a way with your work, because it's kind of like there's always a sort of desperado element and sort of get-rich-quick schemes in it, which makes in your work, that was certainly true of your second novel, Poor People with Money. So that makes it your writing always has a lot of verve, and it's really electric, I think. Where does that pace come from?
I think primarily, like, your job as an artist, to be able to put your work in public, is to entertain people, and I think that a lot of artists seem to forget that. So that's always something at the forefront of my mind. But I think also just those are the communities that I'm from, and within those communities there is a lot of energy and humour, as well as the more negative side of things. So I think just trying to capture that sort of absurdity and chaos and put it on the page. And I think it took me a while to sort of get the hang of it. And I think also bringing in the skills that I use as a poet as well, that sort of brevity and punchiness that I think I try to have in my poetry.
And kind of short and sharp and very brilliant adjectives and things. Every word kind of counts, doesn't it?
Yeah, totally. Like, I think definitely less is more, right, with any writing, I think, but I think there's a tendency with novels, because they can be as long as you want, for people to get a bit waffly, so I try to go the other way.
I've often, in fact, I read a book quite recently that had good press and things, but it waned, I thought, at about 2/3 of the way through, and I thought, I wish they'd just stopped there, because it then kind of got, like a bit repetitive and tying up the ends, and it definitely lost tempo. So let's talk about your kind of writing career, and I'm doing that in, quote marks, obviously, because you've really scrabbled it together as a writer over the years. I mean, has that kind of been planned, or is it organic?
Oh, no, there's not really any planning to it. I mean, this is always something that I wanted to do, but I think that, by virtue of being dyslexic and not having like a formal education and stuff, it was there wasn't a set path, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. I
had to make it up as I went along.
Yeah. Yeah, I really think you're it feels to me like your life is the embodiment of a life lived forward and reviewed backwards, yeah?
Yeah, I guess so. And I think it's just also a testament to the fact that, as an artist, I feel like you should just follow the work, and the rest of it tends to come together,
Yeah, I do, yeah. It's quite hard to... yeah.
I was just going to say, I've really noticed that when I've done workshops at like the universities and more traditional institutions, that, with the students, there's a sort of thing where they're thinking about the career, they're thinking about the industry and all of those things, which is important. But I always think that you're better off concentrating on the work, especially early on, because if the work's no good, it doesn't matter how much networking and all the rest of it you have,
I also think that they're probably looking at context in those academic things. They're always thinking, how is this in relation to something else and everything? And they might end up being followers rather than... I mean, your work's incredibly original. So that's the huge plus of it, surely.
Yeah, well, it's the joy of just making you laugh as you go along, you know what I mean? It's going to be its own thing.
Yeah, and I think you've being self-taught and following your own path and having, some of the other challenges in your life and things, you've always felt quite ambivalent about the sort of literary circles and cliques and things. And I think a lot of people do. You kind of want to be part of the club, and then, then you sort of question yourself and think, do I really? How do you feel about that now that you are finally getting sort of grants and residencies and things?
I mean, it's cool. Like, it's not like I don't want to have those things, but I think I'm not going to compromise to get them. Do you know what I mean? Like, because when I really needed them, none of those doors were open to me.
Right.
With, I'm making a bit of money now and I have all these opportunities and stuff. And a lot of that, again, is from my own, work or the support of friends and stuff, more so than the actual industry. So, if they want to meet me where I'm at, that's all good, but I'm not going to, change my work or change the things I say or whatever for them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no.
And not to sound ungrateful as well. So I got a grant recently and it's going to really be incredible. But it's, I think it's a job of an artist as well, as to be entertaining, as also to be outspoken,
Yes, that can be tricky because sometimes people perhaps want to provoke you and to push you in a way that you don't want to go because you can become a bit of a poster boy or something like that. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. But again, you just don't rise to that. You know what I mean? Like, there's a certain journalist who I won't name, but they always call me an outsider, and then they say that I call myself an outsider. And I'm like, man, you're the only person. Like,
Right.
I never said that. You keep saying that. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
like,
other people's
but
labels.
whatever.
Yeah, and I also think that, you're just one of those classic 7-year overnight success, where you've just worked your ass off and scrabbled things together and kept going, and then suddenly, if you win a short story competition or you get a significant grant, like, fantastic has happened to you recently, then the media jump in on and they go, oh, well, as though they've discovered you and you've just been sitting in a wardrobe.
Yeah, but then I feel like I've been successful in the other endeavours I've done. It just hasn't been in the way which those people have noticed. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's been a bit more sort of underground and amongst your own circles, and you've just been kind of, showing up and doing it like you're talking about your, your poetry persona as Tourette's and things like that you've just been building and building and building, yeah?
Yeah, well, I mean, me and my mate did a zine maybe like 12 years ago now, and we sold like over 1,000 copies of that. And at the time, I didn't really know that was a lot. And then I met someone from one of the university presses, and they told me how many they sell on average. I was like, oh, man, we sold heaps. So, just things like that. But, like, no one would stock that. No one would talk about it in the press, so it kind of didn't exist in that world.
Yes, because a lot of people get very nervous about, biting the hand that feeds them, I think. I think that can be, that they can be. That can be too. Okay, hey, look, let's move off this and just talk about because it's a long topic and it's it is bloody hard. It's bloody hard being a writer, and it's bloody hard being a writer in New Zealand too. Let's talk about how you do. One thing that you really believe in is the shitty first draft. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. So I think like what I've noticed with teaching and also just myself, I guess, is that people, especially early on in their writing careers, they think the first draft has to be something meaningful. But the first draft is just like a brain dump, you know what I mean? Like, you just want to get everything out and then make it good in subsequent drafts.
Yeah, but you've got something to push against and polish and make better.
Totally. Well, I mean, because I think the other thing that people seem to do is they want to think the whole thing out in their head and then put it on the page, but like putting on the page is what's going to show you like, what it can be and what you have structurally and what's working and what's not. You just have to actually sit down at some point and start writing the thing.
Yeah, and I'm a victim of that other school of thought sometimes, is that I kind of write it in my head and, it's beautiful, and then I put it down and not so much, and then I kind of get a bit, I don't know, despondent actually, and sometimes I don't finish things because of that, because I think, oh, actually it's not as good as I thought it was going to be. But I know there's lots of fans of the shitty first draft, and Lamont in particular was one of them, and she wrote that book Bird by Bird, which was about just writing one bit, then writing another bit, then writing another bit, and then some, then you have a whole complete thing. And I also saw read when I was doing research for this, Dominic, that you were a big fan of George Saunders, A Swim in the Pond in the Rain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think the one big lesson I got out of that was his whole analogy about, you're trying to emulate someone and you climb a mountain, but you'll only ever plateau if you're chasing someone else's style of doing something, and then he comes down after a walk, or I don't know if it's a literal or metaphorical thing, and then he looks at this little kind of, anthill, and he goes, well, that's pretty ordinary and that's pretty tiny, but guess what? It's mine. And if I take ownership of that and build it up, then it's, it may not ever be a mountain, but it will at least be, a hill. So is that kind of what you got out of that book too, or?
Yeah, I think I just really enjoy reading like accomplished writers, like how they do things. Analysis. I mean, I guess that's one of the things about being self-taught is that you've got to you
don't have a curriculum. You can go wherever, can't you?
Yeah, and I think there can be downsides to that because definitely, especially early on, there was like massive gaps in my technique that I had to shore up because, it's not like if you go to uni, then they're like, okay, here's all this
resource.
Here's a sort of, yeah. But, yeah, so I always try and find books about writing or watch videos or whatever. And like even, at the moment I'm writing a screenplay, so I'm teaching myself how to do that, and which is really fun.
I don't think you're shy about asking other writers, are you, about kind of tips and tricks too? Or do you do it through reading?
Oh, no. But I mean, that's how I learned originally. Like every time I met a writer, I'd be like, what's your top tip? And then I'd write it down. I had this little notebook and, like that. And I think what that really taught me was that there is no right or wrong way. Well, there is kind of a wrong way, but there's multiple right ways. You know what I mean? Like, because you talk to some people and they'll be like, I write every day for 8 hours, and other people be like, I just do an hour a day. And,
and then take the dog for a walk. Yeah.
So
I mean,
that was quite cool.
I think writers are always writing in the head, if you know what I mean. It's sometimes hard to stay present if you're right in the thick of something. Even if you're not writing it, you're definitely thinking about it or something. Do you still, because you've got a lot on in terms of not only your writing life and some of these residencies, and now your the publishing venture that you've done, the Dead Bird books that you have done with your colleague. And then you seem to be like you've got the online how to write good sort of courses that are constantly, you're doing one of those a month or something, and then you're teaching, you're a youth worker and you're working with rangatahi. How do you? I mean, is it true that you do sometimes write in the middle of the night?
Yeah, I mostly write at night. That's just how I've always done it. I'm real busy for an artist, but I'm not busy for like a normal person. You know what I mean?
Right, because it comes and goes.
Well, just like, I don't know, like friends of mine that have like actual jobs, they're much busier. Or, like some people, have full-time jobs and kids, I don't know, like, and they still manage to make art. Like, I don't know how they do it.
Me neither, yeah.
But also compared to my artist mates, I am busy. So.
Right. You're the hybrid. You're the hybrid model.
Yeah.
And because, of course, you've got your own health challenges with your autoimmune disease. And so you must sometimes have, energy level problems with sort of pain and things. How's that at the moment? How is that kind of under control?
It's just constantly getting slightly worse, like it's degenerative. But I'm just kind of used to it, I think, and like just pushing through it. Because I've had it for 12 years now, so it's just kind of how it is.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's your new normal, as it were.
Yeah, and I think I probably wouldn't have ended up doing a lot of this writing stuff that I've done if I didn't get sick, because it forced me to sort of change my life. So in some ways, it was sort of a blessing.
Right.
In disguise,
So you're kind of making the most of your skill set and working within that framework. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, well, just like I can't, like even if I wanted to work a full-time job, I can't. Like I can't like be on my feet for long periods of time, and because when I do the camps with the kids that I work with, sometimes like you might do a week-long camp, and by the end of that, I can barely walk. So
sure.
It's like, there's no way that I could do that full-time.
Now, talking about working within your own framework, obviously, your dyslexia. It seems to me that held you back earlier in life, but has now become almost your superpower. Can you pinpoint when that change happened?
Yeah, I think it would have been probably like in my mid-20s. So I've been writing since I was about 12, but then I think at that point was when I sort of stopped trying to pretend I wasn't dyslexic, you know what I mean? And like started putting that into my work. And that's when I feel like the work started to have its own kind of style, and I noticed that when I'd perform it, people would react, a lot more.
Because it was your authentic self, you weren't kind of pretending to be someone else. Like, you were integrating parts of your life then, do you think?
Yeah, and it was just different than what anyone else was doing, And I noticed that even now, like sometimes people sort of try and emulate what I do, and but because they're not often neurodivergent, they can't. Do you know what I mean? Like, so that's how it's a blessing, because it's like you can't really plagiarize it, because unless your brain's all scrambled as well,
Right. Yeah. It's a unique point of view, and you're just running with that.
Totally. Because I think once things go through your head and come out, it's different than the way your brain works is just completely different than someone who's neurotypical.
Right. So let's talk about. Sorry, is there anything more you want to say about 1985? Why do you think people should read it?
I don't know. What's the elevator pitch? I try to remember. It's about this 11-year-old kid called Obi who's in Greyland in '85, and the Rainbow Warrior's just blowing up, and then his dad's old friend gets out of prison after 7 years, and there's all this tension between the dad and the friend, and you don't really know why. And then Obi's a sort of video game savant. He plays Spaceys, and he goes through the dad's friend's stuff to find money and finds a treasure map, and then goes on a big adventure.
Right. And you just follow that through, and good and bad things happen, and, I'm sure there's lots of obstacles on the way. It won't be a straightforward. It'll be a 1 step forward, 2 steps back kind of scenario, won't it?
Yeah. No, there's hilarity and drama ensue.
And that's what I find with reading your books is that, something bad happens, and then guess what? It gets worse. But there's always a multicultural element, there's a countercultural element, there's lots of things going on, and I'm always, kind of laughing in unexpected places because of the tenacity of the characters, because in a way they're coming from a haven't got much to lose position, aren't they?
Yeah, that's just what I feel like. I mean, that's what my life has been like, and most of the people I love, their life either have been like that or still like that. So I didn't really realize that it was quite different than a lot of people's experiences until I put the first book out, and then the way people were reacting to it, even in a positive way, was like, I was like, oh, this is not normal to you. You know what I mean? So, like it I guess there is a lot of creative choices in there, but I don't know necessarily if the setting and characters is one of them so much as it's just sort of the stories that I have to tell. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, they're very grounded in place too, and I love that. They're very New Zealand, not the sort of rugby, racing and beer New Zealand, but of the old school New Zealand. They're very, a modern urban reality, I think. And I've kind of, this is an offbeat question, Dominic, but I've wondered how angry you would be if you didn't write.
Angry?
I mean, is this...
I don't know if to be angry necessarily. I think probably more depressed. You know what I mean? Like, I think, but I just have to do it. Like, I don't know why, but it's just always been like that. Do you know what I mean?
So you've kind of channeled everything into it emotionally.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's just always been that way, and I think that's true of most artists I know. They just have to do it, and if they don't, they go crazy.
So in terms of, back to your teaching roles, do you have general advice that you give to the students, or is it all about exercises for them and letting them sort of discover their own talents? How do you kind of... It's
a bit of both. I mean, I think the main thing that I try to teach is just like a really solid foundation, like how to edit your work, how to structure your work, how to use figurative language, how to write dialogue, whatever, just all those techniques, because it's really hard to learn that stuff. Even I've had people come to my classes who've done masters of creative writing who don't know that stuff, So I just try and give people a really solid foundation. And then, also like just tips, like things that took me years to learn. And I'm like, well, I can just tell you now and you don't have to go down that road,
Because I did a Zoom workshop with you that H.J. Kelly organised, organised, it's probably a couple of years ago now, for sort of writers down here. And I want to thank you for some very specific advice you gave to me during that workshop. And that was how changing the noun helps you avoid cliches. And you gave that really, I've never forgotten it. And I've probably passed it on to a couple of people now too. You had us write something that was, or you gave the example and you wrote something that was sort of reasonably cliched, like the police kicked the shit out of us. Yeah. And then you changed that one noun to they kicked the childhood out of us.
Mm.
And that just was chills down my spine, Dominic. I just absolutely got it in that moment. That example is brilliant, and it kind of looks easy, but there's a lot of work behind the scenes. I appreciate to do that, but I've never forgotten that. And so thank you for those kind of specifics. I think you're really helping a lot of people in your workshops, and I also think you're probably helping people that do not have that. That's such a sort of tangible thing, isn't it, rather than the theory of writing, yeah?
Yeah, well, I think that knowledge is really gatekept, and so I think that, I always feel like a responsibility now that I've learned it to give it to as many people as possible, because I think, people just hide that, to make money off it, and I'm sort of like, I guess I make some money off it, but, it shouldn't be, I make a few $100s, it shouldn't be like tens of thousands of dollars to get that knowledge,
Yeah. To get given those sort of guru gifts. Yeah, I agree. Okay, so let's great talking to you. Let's sort of maybe finish on talking about, probably it feels a bit exhausting now to even think about, to think about getting back to it. But you're working on am I right in thinking you're working on your next novel that's set here in Port Chalmers? Is that true? Yeah. So I actually started it before 1985, and then I had a meeting with Penguin, and because I was just like, I've got this vague idea about this thing in Greyland and the Rainbow Warrior, and they're like, you should do that one first, and then do the Port Chalmers one afterwards. So I've got about 20,000 words and a bunch of research. That's going to be the next book. I'm hopefully going to come down and do some more research, and I'm really excited about it. It's going to be quite different. Do you want to talk about the plot or keep it to yourself at the minute?
Yeah, no, I can tell a little bit. So it's about this guy he's an actor, and he's from Port Chalmers. He moves to LA, and he's in films, and he's sort of doing quite good, and then it sort of all goes pear-shaped for him. And 10 years later or so, his father disappears, and so he comes back home to sort of support his dysfunctional family, and then you find out that other people have been disappearing in the town, and sort of goes on a kind of like investigation with some of his mates.
So it's a bit of a quest, but it's kind of under trying circumstances, yeah?
Yeah, sort of like, I guess it's about family and the past, and how you can run from your past all you want, but it always catches up with you,
Yeah, unless you kind of resolve it, it'll bite you on the ass.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
But I'm really excited because I love Port Chalmers, and I love Dunedin and stuff, so I'm excited to get to spend more time down there. Yeah,
and of course we absolutely insist that you'll have another launch down here when it all comes good, when you're ready.
Oh, for sure.
Great talking to you. Or have you got more of your tour to go?
I'm going to the UK and Australia later in the year, but this is all for the moment.
Right, so you can take a breath and try and, resume normal transmission. Not that it's, ever normal, but it's always interesting.
Yeah.
Well, keep your spirits up. Great to talk to you, Dominic. And, look forward to catching up in the future. All the best.
Thank you. Ka kite.
So that was me talking a couple of days ago with Dominic Hoey, and as I say, it was on a cell phone, so the sound quality was a bit patchy, but boy, wasn't it great to hear everything that he had to say. So 1985, his new book is available at all good booksellers. It's published by Penguin, and of course it's available at UBS here in Dunedin. Now, we're just going to take a short musical break while I wait for my next guest, who is our branch chair, Michelle Elvy. She's coming in to talk about all things micro and flash fiction because, of course, it's National Flash Fiction Day this month. So before we do that, we're going to have an uplifting, lovely track from OMC and just sort of name-checking some of the places that Dominic's been to on his book tour. It's called The Land of Plenty. Welcome back. You're listening to Right On with myself, Beverly Martens, and now it's time for our next guest because, as I mentioned before the break, it's National Flash Fiction Month. So I'm delighted to be joined now by poet, editor, writer, and of course our local branch chair, Michelle Elvy, to talk about all things short and micro. Welcome, Michelle.
Kia ora. Thank you, Beverly. Great to be here.
Now, there's a lot going on this month, isn't there? And if anyone wants more of the details than we can possibly give, we're going to rattle through most of the events, including, of course, the local ones. But nationalflash.org is the place that has the kind of full summary of everything. Now, first we've got I can't cover absolutely everything because I really want to drill down into the local events, which Michelle has put together really well. First, we've got the online festival of Flash, which is this weekend. And there's even a YouTube channel, isn't there, called Flash Frontier. So this is June 13 and 14 with writers from Aotearoa and around the world, plus a special youth section. Anything you want to add there, Michelle?
No, but that's exactly right. Great to mention briefly. Always with National Flash Fiction Day, we've been doing this for many years now. We run an online festival because that way we can invite international guests. So it's a mammoth job to coordinate all the time zones, but we do get people from around the world, and we have different panels related to different creative writing topics and ways of expression. And the youth panels and readings are always a highlight, yeah. But we have some incredible guests this year. So everybody can tune into that on the YouTube channel, like you said, and it's all online. You can find it there.
Brilliant. You're such a fan of the short form. Where did that sort of passion come from?
Oh, it's interesting. Somebody asked me that just the other day. What I love about the short form is the way it can help you focus your own writing. So a long time ago, I was writing longer pieces. I was writing essays and creative nonfiction and travel pieces. And I had the idea that I wanted to really sharpen my writing, my imagery, my use of language. And so I set myself the task of just writing a short story, one small story, which ended up being a flash fiction, every week for a year. And I did that, and it was really great. And out of that sprang all the other things that we're celebrating today. That was 2010. So
wow.
Here we are.
So that's 15 years later. Yeah. And that got you match fit, and you haven't stopped.
No, I do a lot of other things, but I see real similarities, and there's a lot of cross-fertilization between creative nonfiction, poetry, and flash fiction. All of it is about, again, that kind of honed writing and the sensory use of language, the sound of it is really important. So I like all of that close kind of reading and writing.
And actually, in talking with Dominic, he is a very snappy writer and a very vivid writer. And we talked about a couple of writing exercises in there that will help people with that. So that's the online. Let's move to kind of what's happening here in Otipoti. A couple of amazing events. One, of course, is the lovely Susan Wardell running a workshop, which is Saturday the 21st.
That's right.
And it's an adult workshop for... That sounds...
I know.
Yeah.
It sounds fun.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? I know. When I was writing that, it's one adult workshop. Yeah. Anyway, it's from 10 to 1, and it's at Luna Restaurant up in Roslyn. I think it's pretty much a sellout now.
There might be a couple
of
spaces
places
left. It's pretty booked up, but that's a really wonderful opportunity because, of course, Susan is such a force. She's such a creative force in our community, at the university, and in the writing community. I actually just saw Susan yesterday online because she's right now, of course, she's overseas in the middle of this big festival running between Otipoti and Edinburgh. And I am participating in that as well. So we had an online korero there, and that was really neat. And I asked her, I said, you are going to be back in time for the 21st. And she said, yes. So we're really looking forward to that.
Yeah, and she was, now that workshop is titled A Speculative Dictionary of Climate Emotion. I don't quite know what that means, but it's certainly intriguing enough to want to go and find out, I think. So
yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah,
I mean, Susan she's passionate about the creative elements and about the world that we live in. And I think it'll be really worthwhile.
Yeah, she's an academic and an activist.
That's right.
In a way, actually, Dr. Octavia Cade is as well.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. And also just creds for Susan, not that she needs anymore, but she was the 2022 NFFD winner, wasn't she? So,
that's exactly right. And we often have really highly acclaimed writers who show up and do really well in National Flash Fiction Day from our region. And interesting, you mentioned Octavia Cade because she's also, both she and Susan will be guest readers at the National Flash event on the 22nd.
That's right. So let's segue nicely into that. I had to laugh because she said it's between 3 and 5 p.m. and I'm thinking I've never been to one of Michelle's events that that sticks within the boundaries because there's so much and you pack everything into them and they're very rich and there's all sorts of things. There is emerging voices, there's art collaborations, there's musical guests, there's going to be some prize giving, there's going to be some Micro Madness selections read out, etc., etc., etc. Now, there's one person I didn't know, and that's John Burney. Can you give us a bit of a bio on him? Because I've not heard of him.
Yes, well, John Burney is a local teacher and advocate for Te Reo Māori. He's been teaching for a very long time. I think half the people listening here probably will have gone to some of his classes. So
fantastic.
He is really wonderful, and he has graciously accepted our invitation to come. And when we present POTO, the book of short fictions that are written in English and Te Reo Māori, some of the readers will read their works in both languages, and John is actually going to read a few of them in the Te Reo Māori. Because even as we're all learning, it's a hard thing to get up and read an entire, and even though it's short, it's a whole piece of creative writing, and that's hard. So John's going to read a few of those. That'll be really lovely.
Oh, that's brilliant. Oh, no, that's a really good context for him.
And he's got a gorgeous reading voice. He'll just be really fabulous. Yeah,
and Robert Sullivan's going to be there as well.
He will be there. Yeah. Jessica Hinarangi will be there. They'll both be reading in Te Reo Māori and English, of course, and many others. David Eggleton, Lindley Edmeads. It's a really fantastic range. Yeah.
And we can't go through them now, but yeah, quality. It's quality. So actually, just before we get on to POTO in a bit more depth, I just want to remind people of where it is because it's a new venue. And that is, we'll all remember, it's Adrian, isn't it?
It is Adrian Mann.
Yeah, Adrian lovely man. And he runs Alexander Pianos, which was just next to the King Edward building in Upper Stewart Street, just wedged in there. And we have had some great events there. But of course, he's moved because he's got a phenomenal contract, which is the whole other story of building these massive pianos. He's building 2 of them for a client in Europe, so he needed a much bigger space. So he is out at Mosgiel now, 8 Grant Dalton Street. You might have to Google Maps that, people, because you won't have been there before. So that's his new premises, and that is where the event is going to be. So the good news is it's on the flat, it's easier for parking, and there's much more room, but it is a new place, so you need to, Yeah,
it's excellent parking, really easy to get there, and it's actually not that far away. The nice thing is, too, it's earthquake proofed. It's, it's a solid, large warehouse, and it's a phenomenal space. So I imagine people might come along just because they'll be quite curious to see Adrian's new space. This is the first event that he's hosting.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Right. Now let's, so there's there's kind of 2 sides. So there's the National Flash Fiction side of the event, and then there is the launch of POTO, which is something that you co-edited with Kiri, I hope I'm saying this right, Kiri Piahana-Wong.
Yeah, Kiri Piahana-Wong.
Yeah. And she, so that's just being launched at the moment. In fact, you're driving up this afternoon to go to the launch event in Christchurch.
That's exactly
tomorrow
right.
night. That's right, isn't it? And then the Otago Southland launch will be at this event as well. Can you just kind of, you've sort of alluded to it, but can you sort of, does POTO mean short? Mm-hmm. Yes, I thought obviously it must. Can you just talk through, because there's 100 submissions in there, how hard a job was it choosing? Just generally, what's the flavour of the book?
Oh, it was very hard to put this book together because of the wide range of selections that you can look at for a book like this. It's interesting to point out it's not a best of. I edited an anthology back in 2018, which we called Best Small Stories from Aotearoa New Zealand. It's not a best of, but what it is, it's a collection of stories that Kiri and I both thought as we were making selections would translate well, would resonate across the languages, and would also, the stories are written in such a fashion, first of all, they show off the small form, the flexibility, the agility, the elasticity of the form. There are prose poems, there are stories, there's a whole range. But also, we were really looking for stories that were specifically paying attention to language and how that would translate. And we worked with a team of 10 translators. Hone Morris was the chief translator. He had oversight over all of it, and he was absolutely phenomenal to work with because he paid such close attention to translation, which is never word for word. And if any of us, if you speak other languages, and I've lived in a lot of different places with other languages. So if you're accustomed to moving between languages, it's never a word for word kind of a translation. It's about capturing the feeling and the meaning. And sometimes there's, idiomatic phrases, there's funny expressions that maybe don't translate directly, but you find a way to express that. So language is fluid, and that was part of the project. We really see it as a language learning tool. We're super excited about that. We hope it will go into schools.
That would be amazing, because that makes, the accessibility of being able to dip in and out of it. People will find what they want and then reflect on that and then sort of go back and, it's going to be very groundbreaking in that way, I think.
I hope so. And the idea, too, that you have this two languages side by side on the page, so you can see the English and the Maori right next to each other. That was critical for us, that layout. And I think the designers and the publisher, they just did an amazing job pulling it together.
What was the time frame? Because it sounds like something that you can think of, and then to instigate and implement and get to launches must have been months, was it?
Oh, I think this was 3 years in the making.
Was it?
Yeah.
Was it that? Yeah, no.
A book like this,
it's
pretty enormous. I had the idea, I think, 3 years ago. Also because of my background in languages, I'm really interested in language learning and how we learn, how we listen to languages. And with this, upswing in everybody interested in learning Te Reo Māori, I thought, well, wait a minute, I would really love to have a book where I could see the languages side by side, where I could practice small phrases, where I wouldn't find it daunting to have to pick up an entire book, but I could see something small on the page. And I think the small form lends itself beautifully to that. So I spoke with Kiri, and then Massey University Press came on board, and then we had a call for submissions, which took quite a long time, maybe 6 months, I can't remember, but that was already 2 years ago, I think. And then we worked for a year with translators. It's a really big task to translate 100 stories.
Oh, you must be incredibly proud of it. Well done. That's excellent.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we're really excited about it.
So as you say, not only groundbreaking, but it becomes a legacy project, doesn't it?
Yeah, I hope so. I think for me, it's really interesting because it pulls together all of my interests, my interest in history and cultural expression, my interest in language, also the fact that I'm obviously a newcomer to New Zealand. I've been here since 2008, and it's very much my home. I feel at home here, especially in Otapoti, but I'm curious about how we express ourselves as a multilingual society and why that is so important.
Excellent. And there are some, once again, there's a range of voices in there, isn't there? There's sort of the, Cilla McQueen, Bill Manhire, the heavyweights, some new people, some emerging people. Yeah, excellent. But it's clearly all done with heart.
Oh, exactly right, yeah. And again, we really paid attention to what kinds of stories would resonate as a set, as a group. So you can go into a story by a brand new writer, or you can look up, Bill or Cilla or, Robert Sullivan or David Eggleton, as I mentioned before. We've got some of our best writers, our most treasured writers in there, of course. Emma Neal, thinking of locally,
yes.
A lot of local writers. In fact, I think there's around 16 or so from the Otago region, which is pretty good. And again, quite a few of them will be reading on June 22nd.
Yeah, excellent. So just recapping on that, June 22nd, event 3 to 5 on Sunday afternoon out at Mosgiel at Alexander Piano's in Grant Dalton Street. Thank you so much, Michelle. I know you've got a hell of a lot on, and I really appreciate you coming in and talking about that. And I certainly look forward to talking about your own writing in more depth later in the year, because I know you've got a couple of exciting residencies coming up. You've got Roughridge. Yes,
I have the Mike Riddell residency in August and September, and then following that, a residency up in Auckland with the Auckland Regional Council Parks.
Yeah, I've given a shout out on this program to you getting that before. So we might catch you on the gap, maybe September or October. We'll talk about you've done one and you're about to do another, and
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. Thank you so much for inviting me. June is a big month. It's exciting for Otapoti and Otago. And we have a lot to look forward to this month. Thank you.
And safe travels when you're...
Thanks very much.
It's pretty tricky out there. All right. I'll just sign off now. So you just, And that is our show. Action-packed and a lot more to come. Wasn't that excellent? So I'm going to sign off now and saying thanks to our guests, Dominic Hoey and Michelle Elvy, and just let you a little heads up that next month's show, my guest will be Mira Harrison, who's written a novel about young doctors in the UK working for the NHS back in the early 90s, called 1 in 3. I really enjoyed reading it because, of course, I did, like all bright girls, you had to be a nurse or a teacher, so I did my nursing training back then, and certainly some of the stories resonated with me from that time, probably about the system more than more than being a nurse per se, just the very hierarchical system that you worked in, and also with the fact that Diary of a Junior Doctor, the doco series, is on TVNZ at the moment about young doctors working in Middlemore and all their challenges and the relentlessness, and it makes you realise between Mira's training back in the 90s and 35 years later that not a lot's changed in terms of the pressure and things. So that will be our show next month. Meanwhile, though, I want you to keep reading, keep writing, and keep warm.
What do you want to be when you grow up? They say you are what you read, and the university bookshop can help you be whoever you want to be. Do you want to be an athlete? Then sit down with an inspiring sports biography. Do you fancy yourself as a detective? We have a grisly lineup of murder mysteries waiting just for you. Do you aspire to be the world's greatest chef? We have cookbooks to tantalise your taste buds. Do you want to celebrate your inner child? Play up in our fabulous children's room. The University Bookshop, helping you decide what you want to be when you grow up.
This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On the Air.